Hi, I'm Nichols, and I'm going to talk to you about 10 laws that every sportsman should be aware of. Now, many of you know I'm an avid fisherman, but what you might not know is I'm also a criminal and traffic defense attorney. I'm the managing partner at the law firm of Nichols Green in Northern Virginia, and I do exclusively criminal and traffic defense. Now, I'm a licensed attorney in Northern Virginia, and I know a lot about Virginia law, but I don't know really anything about the laws in other states. So what I'm going to do is I'm only going to talk to you about laws that really affect all of the states in the U.S. Now, if you have a question specific to your state, call the Department of Fish and Game in your area and ask the enforcement agents the question, or contact a local attorney. If you've been ticketed, call a local attorney in the area where you were ticketed immediately. Now, if you happen to have any sort of legal issues, criminal traffic or fishing game ticket in Northern Virginia, feel free to contact me, give me a call, shoot me an email. We're happy to do free consultations. A lot of property owners think that they can hunt, fish, or trap, and that the fish and game wardens can't do anything about it, as long as they're on private property. This isn't true. Okay? Fish and game wardens, police officers, they can go into the great outdoors and enforce the laws regardless of whether it's public or private. Now, the laws that protect the privacy of your property is the Fourth Amendment, the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. However, the Fourth Amendment doesn't apply to what we call open fields. It's something called the open field doctrine. It's a doctrine, a legal theory that has been around longer than our country. And basically it states that you have no privacy rights to the great outdoors. So even if you own some land and it's wooded or a field or whatever, that you have no privacy rights in that, such that the Fourth Amendment bars searches on that property. So for instance, if you're hunting or fishing in the woods behind your house, a game warden can enter your property, ask to see your license and see what you're doing, and that doesn't violate the Fourth Amendment. Now, the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution protects you from unreasonable searches and seizures, and this can affect license checks. So we're all aware that when we're out hunting or fishing or trapping, we see a game warden, they can come up and demand to see your license. That may be unconstitutional. The Fourth Amendment says that police officers are not allowed to arbitrarily stop people. Okay? A cop can't just pull you over and see whether you have a driver's license. They have to have some sort of reasonable, articulable suspicion that you're doing something wrong before they can stop you. They cannot arbitrarily just stop people. There's a few exceptions to this, but generally that's the rule. But as we all know, game wardens do this on a routine basis, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But unfortunately, there is very little case law on this subject. It's very much an uncharted territory in the legal profession. However, in Arkansas in 2014, there was a very important case in the highest court in Arkansas, which states that when a fish and game officer goes up and asks somebody to see their license, they need to have some sort of reasonable, articulable suspicion of wrongdoing before they can do that. Now, on a practical level, if this happens, you're out fishing or hunting, don't be a jerk, okay? Even if you believe an officer is violating your constitutional rights, no situation is so bad that you can't make it worse by being a jerk to the police officer, okay? If the officer demands to see your license, show them your license. If you're going to have a fight, fight in court with your attorney, not out in the field, okay? One thing that's really important to understand is the difference between civil offenses and criminal offenses. Criminal offenses go on your criminal record. Criminal offenses can sometimes come with jail time. Civil offenses do not go on your criminal record and do not come with jail time. Okay, so most traffic tickets are civil offenses. Assault and battery, DUI, reckless driving, those are typically criminal offenses. Okay, most hunting laws are criminal offenses, not civil. Not always, each state is different, but the important thing is to know the difference and to know when you're facing a civil offense and when you're facing a criminal offense. So for instance, in the state of Virginia, almost every single fish and game law is a criminal offense. So if you're convicted, they go on your permanent criminal record. They can affect your security clearance, your immigration status. They can affect your professional license if you're an attorney or a doctor or an accountant. So it's a really big deal. This is really deceiving though, because a lot of these offenses are prepayable little tickets. The officer writes you a ticket, says it's 250 bucks, either pay it or come to court. It's just like a speeding ticket, and you pay your 250 bucks for not having your license in your possession, you go on your way. It looks like a ticket, it feels like a ticket, so people think it's just like a traffic ticket, but it's not. It's a criminal offense, and by prepaying it, you're pleading guilty, and that goes on your permanent criminal record and never comes off in the state of Virginia. Anytime you are interrogated by a law enforcement officer, whether it's a game warden, a cop, a state trooper, whoever, you have an absolute right to remain silent. You may be ordered to do things like get out of your car, or put your hands behind your back, or show me your ID, but you don't have to answer questions, okay? That is a very important right, and I always recommend people exercise that right. There's very few situations that you can't make worse by opening your mouth. And if a police officer or a game warden is asking you questions, they're not just doing that for fun. They're doing that because they're trying to gather information in their prosecution against you. They're investigating you. Okay, that's really serious stuff. So, just keep your mouth shut. Now, you don't have to be mean. You don't have to be rude. You don't have to tell lies. Just don't say anything. And you can be polite and you can be cooperative without answering questions. It's important to understand two important things about fishing and hunting laws. First, you have an absolute duty to understand and obey the fishing and hunting laws. That's on you, okay? And two, those fishing regs you pick up at the bait shop, those are not the actual law. Those are a summary of the law, okay? If you're going to be doing something unusual, something that's a little outside the box and you're not sure whether it's legal or not, or if you're going to try to exploit some little loophole you think you found in the law, read the actual law. Don't just read the regulations, read the actual law. So you can see right here I've got this like bookshelf full of books. This is the law, okay? This is what's inside these books, is the law. That stuff you get at the fishing store, that is not the law. That is someone's summary of what they think the law says. Talk to a local attorney, call your local Department of Fish and Game, ask them directly, but always remember, it's on you to obey the law, and it's on you to understand the law, and ignorance is not a defense, and being given bad advice is not a defense. So if you talk to a fish and game buddy of yours and he tells you something's legal and then you go out and do it and get a ticket, tough luck. Okay, that's not a defense. It's on you to know and obey the laws. Tournament fraud is actually turning out to be a bigger deal each year, and more local governments are enforcing it. If you go into a fishing tournament or any type of tournament and you cheat, that's a crime in almost every state. Some states have specific laws dealing with cheating in fishing tournaments or different types of tournaments, but almost every state has laws against fraud. So fraud is generally defined as using deceit or lies to get something of value from somebody. If you go to a bass fishing tournament and you cheat to make everyone believe that you caught the biggest bass, that's also fraud. Okay? If you receive any prize money, if you receive any sort of items of value and because of your cheating, then you've committed fraud, and that's a crime. In the state of Virginia, if what you received because of your cheating was worth more than $200, it's a felony and you can go to jail for up to 20 years. So it's a pretty big deal. Another law that really surprises people is the animal cruelty laws. So almost every state has some laws governing, hurting, torturing animals, cruelty to animals, animal neglect, that sort of thing. But a lot of states include language that carves out an exception for legal hunting, trapping, or fishing. So what happens is when somebody breaks the hunting, trapping, or fishing laws, they run the risk of then being in violation of the animal cruelty laws. And the animal cruelty laws are almost always more serious than the hunting or trapping laws. So here's some examples. Most states have laws that if you go trapping, you have to check your traps every 24 hours. So if someone goes out and sets a bunch of traps, doesn't check them like they should, some hiker finds a half-dead raccoon in your trap, calls Fish and Game, and Fish and Game goes and writes you not only for illegal trapping, but they also then write you up for animal cruelty. A really common misconception I hear from people is from private landowners who think they own the wildlife on their land. And this isn't true. Even if you own the land, even if you own the trees and the rocks and the dirt, you don't own the wildlife. Wild animals are owned by the public, and the government controls who and when and how somebody can take and harvest an animal. And that you own a wild animal only after you've legally harvested it. Unless your state has written special laws for private landowners, you have to obey the same laws as everybody else. The issue of jurisdiction is really an important one, especially in fishing cases, because so many state and county borders are lakes or rivers. So when you're out fishing on your favorite river, one side's one state and the other side's another state, and that's a real common thing. So when you have a jurisdictional issue like that, and a person commits a crime or breaks the law, they break the law in every jurisdiction where they committed some part of the crime. And there's no double jeopardy. So you can be prosecuted twice for the same act as long as it was committed in two sovereign jurisdictions. This applies to understanding which laws you need to obey as well. So for instance, if I'm standing in Virginia and I'm casting my lure into Maryland and retrieving, I'm fishing in both Virginia and Maryland at the same time. And I need to obey both laws at the same time. Now this gets really tricky, okay? And so a lot of states that share a boundary, share a river or a lake, will have some sort of agreement about which laws they enforce and which laws will be enforced in that area, just so fishermen aren't stuck between the horns of a dilemma. So if you're fishing in an area, a body of water that serves as a boundary, make sure you understand the laws and the boundaries in which state you're in, and also whether or not there's some sort of enforcement agreement so that you only need maybe one license or there's one set of laws that you need to obey. Another area of law that's really important to sportsmen is private properties and public right-of-ways. So obviously trespassing on someone's private property is a violation of the law, and that's often a crime. However, a lot of places have public right-of-ways in rivers or lakes, so navigatable waterways are considered public. So if it's a lake or a river where people can do commerce on or they can travel, then it becomes public. Now, the hard part about it is that these laws are different all across the country. So for instance, in some states, the high tide mark marks the boundary between a public right-of-way, waterway, and private property. In other states, it's the low water mark is the boundary. In some states, the water itself is public, but the land underneath the water is private. So for instance, you go out west, you can drift or kayak down the river even though it's going over the top of someone's private property, but you can't wade and you can't drop anchor, otherwise that's trespassing. So there's really squirrely rules that are very different from each state about what is public right-of-ways and what is private. However, these rules, when you understand them, can be quite powerful and they can actually be helpful as a fisherman. So a real common thing I see is I'll be out on a public waterway, I'll be on a lake, and you'll pull your boat up and start fishing near someone's dock, right? And there'll be signs saying, no fishing in front of my dock. Well, that sign's meaningless because I have an absolute right to fish anywhere within that public right-of-way that I want. And I can put my boat anywhere I want, even if it's inches from their docks, okay? That's public property. I still have to obey public laws and public rules about fishing and docking and anchoring boats, but I can be on that property as long as I obey the law. At any rate, I hope these 10 tips helped, and I hope you learned a little something about hunting, fishing, and trapping laws, and hopefully it will help you stay out of trouble and have a good time enjoying these wonderful sports. If you ever do get in trouble, if you ever do get a ticket, call an attorney. Okay, almost every attorney I know does free consultations. If you are in that situation and you do need to speak to an attorney about a case in Northern Virginia, give us a call. I'm going to put links to my company's website in the description, and our phone number and email you can reach me at, and we're always happy to talk to people. And at any rate, thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more videos, legal videos, check out the Nichols and Green YouTube channel, and we have some very entertaining videos about breathalyzers and things that can screw up breathalyzers and how police radar works. And if you'd like to see more cat fishing and carp fishing videos, check out the Cats and Carp YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to click subscribe.